Good morning, everyone. My name is Nolwazi Mkhwanazi, and I'm the director of the Medical Humanities program at WISER. I'm also a professor at the Center for the Advancement of Scholarship at the University of Pretoria. Okay, I'd like to begin this morning by thanking everyone who's here, and also everyone who's been part of creating this wonderful journey around the Medical and Health Humanities Network. It's obviously been a joy and a pleasure to work with you and to work with individuals and institutions across the continent who are interested in building this network particularly. I kind of remember back in the day when we started the medical humanities in South Africa, and then we were wondering what to call the network. And we decided to add Africa to the medical humanities. And that was simply because there was a colleague, Benson, who came from Kenya, and he was part of the workshop in Humanis. And many of the people at the workshop were from South African universities, and Benson was from Nairobi, and hence we added Africa to the network. It is really interesting today that we actually have a lot of people from all around the continent. And it's also interesting that we are able to work with people who are really interested in medical humanities and in building the network, not just in Southern Africa, but across the continent. In this workshop, we actually have representation from across the continent through the networks, through organizations, and through universities. And it's really great that we are able to build a network that takes the medical humanities seriously and sees it as a field that is worth investing in. In 2018, my colleague Carla and Victoria Hume and I edited a special issue around the medical and health humanities in Africa. And in this special issue, we kind of noted that there is an increasing interest in growing the medical humanities on the continent. And this interest, we believe, is actually growing. And part of it is the effects of the climate crisis, the increasing kind of global and racial inequalities we're experiencing, migration and war. And all these factors actually come together and allow health practitioners from different healing modalities, as well as artists, activists, academics, and civil society organizations to come together to actually address pressing issues around health concerns. And the COVID-19 pandemic is just one example of this. So in the last 5 years, many of us have come together, actually often on an annual basis, to have conferences and to have meetings and workshops in order to share our understandings and experiences. We don't always call this the medical and health humanities because medical humanities means different things to different people. And it's certainly not a new thing on our continent. What we are really interested in is actually challenging and disciplinary boundaries, as well as academic hierarchies. And when I say we, I mean basically the team at the Medical and Health Humanities African Network. We acknowledge and celebrate that we come from diverse locations, socially and intellectually, and that we are also at different stages in our careers, and we have different experiences and career trajectories. We like to create an environment where people can learn from each other, as well as support each other intellectually and otherwise. The working and research environment that we would like to create in the Medical and Health Humanities African Network is one that is orientated towards an ethics of care. It is also one that we hope and we like to make sure is driven by social justice and by recent writings on decolonizing knowledge. With that in mind, we've been working on building the network and also on building a project that will support existing local medical and health humanities networks, that will also create new regional networks and that will hopefully connect these networks together in a medical and health humanities Africa working group. So since 2019, we were awarded a grant by the Wellcome Trust to support this project. And this is the grant that is actually supporting the conference today. So by way of ending, I'd like to thank the many people who made this conference possible and all of you for being part of the conference. And in particular, I'd like to thank Chisomo Kalinga, who is from the Malawi Medical Humanities Network. Chisomo came up with the theme of the conference, and she has actually been in charge of putting together this very exciting program. I'd also like to thank Charlotte Visafi for her amazing work on the program, on the website, and for her general fortitude. And I look forward to the next 2 days. Thank you everyone for coming. So I'm gonna hand over back to Chisomo, who is gonna say the next few words before Carla.
Yeah, I'm actually presenting.
Great, thank you so much for that, Nolwazi. I just want to again welcome everybody here. It's so exciting to finally meet everybody, and we are all looking forward to the day that we can do this in person. So I'm not going to take up too much time because I think that there's quite some incredible discourses about medical humanities that's going to come from Carla. But I really just wanted to run through some of the structural issues of some of the things that we'll be discussing, but also to take time to really go through and thank our participants for what they're doing to bring forward their work and contributions to understanding this concept of joy. So I just want to start briefly, why joy? You know, why does joy matter? You know, it seems like such an arbitrary thing, you know, this state of happiness, what is it and how does it manifest? And, you know, I'm always quite cautious in the way that we frame joy in Africa, because it's sometimes adopted as simply a reaction against, but it's so much more than that. It's a state of being. It's time to give pause for gratitude, for celebration, for praise. And this is especially poignant when we're considering the incredible tough year that we've had around the world. We have been united in fear and uncertainty, but also in these moments of fear and uncertainty, it has been hope and resilience. The world came together to rally behind against Black Lives Matter, but also to fight COVID. It has been such an incredibly intense year. But throughout these moments, at the moments that we feel we want to crack, there've always been moments of joy, which we break through to uplift each other. So in that sense, we've come here today, not just to examine constructive approaches to how we infuse joy in our approaches to health, but also to celebrate and appreciate the aesthetics and style of how we do so and how we express ourselves in the myriad ways across the continent. I think there's so much to discuss about joy, about the beauty of what it means to be African, you know, the celebration and how we just bring up in these moments to look at the importance of health and joy together. So we'll be looking at spatial and temporal elements, but also we do revel in joy as an act of resistance. And it's important to understand why that manifests so uniquely across African people, her diaspora. So, you know, I just wanted to move and really just kind of go through a few things about some of the issues that do come up. You know, we're going to be hearing perspectives from literature and medicine, the way narrative and rhetorical techniques are used by doctors, patients, healthcare workers, in correspondence, in case histories, and the way we kind of look at the way joy has been infused in these narratives, the representation in literature, their ethical dilemmas, and all of these issues that counter narratives of pain, sympathy, and things that we traditionally understand as the medical encounter. But really the role of joy in shaping our responses to these really pressing issues that encompass the entire spectrum of what it means to be sick or healthy. So we're looking at, you know, how even in temporal considerations, that the way that we have kind of framed these productions of scientific and medical knowledge within these contexts of politics, of strife and struggle, within important key issues such as race, gender, and class. But then how does joy manifest in this? How do we transcend sometimes these scientific beliefs to be able to express the way that we have felt or the way that we have received health and medical treatment? Joy is a way of revolutionizing the way that we view our medical history, our medicalized bodies. And we hope that through this engagement, we will produce a series of landmark, not just studies, but also encounters such as this, which we really are just crossing our fingers and hoping that we can get everyone vaccinated so the world can return to normal, but really have this opportunity to use this space to produce lessons and knowledge, produce lessons and models for emancipating the way that we have been constructed to think of Africa as a site of trauma only. I think there's so much that we can turn to, even within the realm of medical ethnography, turning our attentions to cultural constructions of health and illness and other modes of healing, but also looking at the way global health ties into this, to look at the different models of health and how African approaches across the continent to positive thinking, to celebration and joy and reception, to combat issues as hesitancy and fears and legacies of real colonial harm that we're still working through, so that we can impact international health policy and create health systems of care so that we can properly address social determinants of health as they affect us across the continent. So the bioethics and medical humanities provides us with this platform to greater understand the role of art in medicine, the role of storytelling in medicine, and the importance of how we understand the spiritual and emotional dimensions of disease and the human experience. In part of this, we're drawing across so much across various disciplines. We're looking at interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, decolonial thought, and drawing indigenous thought, African thought, or Black cultural studies into a framework of thinking that are rooted in our local knowledge systems, both in traditional and modern, and beginning to understand how we are deeply invested in the process of imagination. Joy is a way for us to imagine what has been, what could be, and to speculate a better future for ourselves. And the humanities helps us to think critically about these, to look at a situation and develop skills on how we envision the body, our health, illness, well-being, treatment, epidemics, and death. So across the next 2 days, we're going to be looking at a variety of projects. We're so excited to bring forward 2 keynote speakers, Dr. Shea Abimbola and Mr. Angelo Fick, who will be bringing different perspectives on global health and talking about the social expressions of how health impacts us on a daily basis. We have mindfulness and meditation seminars that will be led by Catriona Towers of the Art of Health. We have performances from across the continent that will be led by Mr. Amir Shahid of Art of Health. We've got short film viewings from Malawi. We'll be talking about how to address the pleasure deficit in sex and how pleasure has been left out of discourses in sexual and reproductive health in Africa. We'll have reflections on the joy of traditional healing from a traditional healer, Dr. Sinitemba Makanya. We're going to be looking at qualitative challenges to doing research qualitative research from Mozambique. We'll have instructions from how to use BMJ Medical Humanities as a platform to discuss these diverse issues. And then tomorrow we've got another exciting lineup where we'll hear from Dr. Peter Kilroy of the Wellcome Trust. We will be having a panel on prenatal care and maternal care from Kenya, from Dr. Benson Mulemu. And we'll have an exciting panel from scholars Victoria Bonsu, Dr. Victoria Bonsu, Dr. Thandeka Dlamini, and Professor Emmanuel Obumwale from the University of Abidan to discuss how medical humanities looks across the continent, and also panels on psychosocial disabilities and music and healing from Kenya and Rwanda. So we're just so pleased that we were able to pull all of these exciting people from across the continent, and we really hope that you'll join us in celebrating them and their work. I'm going to turn over to Carla. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and a very warm welcome again to everybody. So one of my favorite parts of things is being able to say hello to people, because it always speaks to the chance when a thing is about to start, when you're at that moment of an interesting journey and adventure. And we'd like to thank all of you for being here, and our colleagues who've not only made it possible, but also this is for us a number of firsts. This is our first direct engagement with the arts of health. So thank you very much to Katriana and Amir for being part of this. This is the first conference of the SEAM, which is the Southern and East African Medical Health Humanities Network. And it is one of the first times in which we are being able to join together despite the very many myriad challenges, as Chisomo said, that the last year has brought to us all. So much as there is a small bit of sadness in me in that we are not face to face and cannot see each other's eyes and make connections across the room in a way that we would if we were all together, there is a great joy in me that in some spaces the digital realm allows us to connect in ways that we maybe would not have been able to previously. Having said that, we also do deeply acknowledge that the digital divide and the differences and access to basic things, or what we now consider basic online requirements like internet access and stable internet connections and even electricity to run that, do still create divisions between ourselves and everybody we'd like to participate. Nonetheless, we are here, there's reason for joy, and I am going to in some ways pick up from where Nolwazi's introduction started and speak, I hope, into being some of the joy that's taken us to this point of joy that Chisomo has spoken of, by providing just a brief overview for those who are new to the network or are not aware of what has been going on or what we've been doing. So if you'll bear with me, I do quite like to have an odd image or a thing. So I have done a PowerPoint presentation, and the idea here is just to provide an overview of some of the grounding principles that have guided our work so far, to have a look at a few of the spaces where medical health humanities on the continent have had interventions, to speak about some of the latest developments, some of which already have been mentioned, and many of which have been made possible because of the support of the Wellcome Trust. Also, I'm going to unashamedly promote our website and our Facebook groups, because we want you so very much to be part of our community and to keep this conversation going. And yes, just to give you an oversight, an insight, a taste of where we've come from and where we hope in the future to be going. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Can somebody please just indicate if they can see, if that is visible, because I can't see the chat. Everyone, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see?
Oh, yeah, we can see. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. So I've called this the rhizomic evolution of a field across the continent. And that's partly because we recognize, even as we speak, that there is no one narrative around medical health humanities on this continent, or even the idea or scope or frame or definition of what MHH is. In our audience today are people who have been working in, around, and on the field or aspects of the field long before many of us even got there. And I'd like to acknowledge all those who came before us and who have been so central in fomenting this. This is a history, and as a historian, I would never say the history. It is a history, a overview of some of the routes and spaces that we've taken to get to where we are today, this exact moment of having a Finding Joy in Healthcare in Africa symposium. We've spoken in some of our work in this first special edition that we did around Medical Health Humanities Africa being a space on the kind of edge lands, that place between urban and peri-urban and rural, that slightly scrubby, sometimes a little uncomfortable, yet often deeply interesting space for many of the people who have contributed to building the field and to formal contributions in other points. Their work has always been, or sometimes has sat uncomfortably within the conventional boundaries or silos of disciplinary or academic spaces, or spaces of practice or creativity. And so in many ways, one of the things that often brings people together, that has often encouraged the conversations that we have been these ideas of being slightly on the edge, slightly out of the central space, and yet still creatively engaged. I used the term rhizomic earlier, and we found that it was a useful idea to think about the rhizomes in grass, so a bit like the image here, because there is no one central beginning or end point to MHH. It has often formed in small clumps and then spread out with roots into certain directions. Then those roots have grown new plants, and then another root has grown here and grown another set of plants. So while everything is connected underground, what it looks like above ground may look completely different or framed as self-contained, yet there is a network of connection, a rhizomic way of speaking to and connecting that has joined many of us formally and informally in the work we've done. And this idea of a growing, evolving network is one that we've always liked to kind of hold on to as the idea for how we see the growth of the network going forward. So we've been interested in and connected with, and people have been involved with the notion of health and the body in parts or a whole. And this was also the theme of one of the other conferences that Chisomo organized. So we've seen that medical and health humanities as a field, as an idea, as a praxis, can be evident in new collaborations between, for example, health sciences education, healthcare provision planning and access, research and academic work, creative and performing arts, and also activism and intervention, specifically those led by communities and civil society organizations or NGOs. So we have always kind of been of the opinion that MHH cannot be something that is merely bound to the pages of an academic space, although that's often where we work because it's where we're kind of what we do in our day jobs. But that MHH extends well beyond these ideas of merely the written, that it has to extend to the creative, to the practical, to the teaching, to the research, to the learning, to the addressing of health and healthcare concerns. So essentially it is about, and Nolwazi touched on this, and Chisomo has taken this discussion around our new theoretical thinkings or potential new theoretical thinkings in terms of joy. It's about looking at health differently, about looking at health across silos, about looking at health collaboratively, about building ideas of health on critical kindness. So intellectual vigor, accountability, but done critically, but with kindness. It is, in that sense, a direct challenge to the often quite hierarchical, quite destructive, competitive aspects that creep into healthcare provision, healthcare practice, healthcare education, and also university spaces. So it is a field that we would hope and would love to see built on generosity, epistemic generosity, and other. And one of the central characteristics that often causes a lot of nightmares for administrators and finance, financial managers, is that for almost every event that we have done, we have pooled our resources, rather than these being events where we compete with each other for resources or for spotlight or for fame or whatever it is that people compete with. We have made an active effort to always share our resources, our knowledge, our networks, our own time, our own capacities, because we want something that looks and is infused with ideas of generosity and collaborative kindness. So one of the other things we started doing, and she's almost spoken about thinking through joys and way of understanding joy, is to also imagine what medical health humanities with an African context, within an African context, with a contribution from the continent, from scholars in and of Africa might look like. And Kalinga, Chisomo, I hope you're not overly embarrassed, but I'm going to quote Chisomo Kalinga's definition here, because it is one that I think at the moment best captures where we are and how we understand the field. That critical health and medical humanities is a field of study that explores the intersections between the human condition through the arts, humanities, social sciences, and their engagement with a broad spectrum of the health and biological sciences and practices. And these include illness, medicine, treatment, recovery, and death. And that these discourses intersect with environmental sciences and environmental humanities, and specifically the impact of ecological systems on the health of individuals, communities, and societies. And the contexts that Chisomo described and that Nolwazi spoke to, these moments that have shaped our thinking around things like breath, around things like joy, speak to the current kind of global social, political, and economic context that we're in. And I think puts on those of us involved in the field a particular requirement to think imaginatively and creatively around the health and healthcare, our wellness, the quality of life and the qualities of death we'd like to have in our futures. A much earlier definition of medical humanities is still, by Patterson, still holds a really nice kind of message for us, I think, that medical and health humanities should be a diverse network or a movement that should prize diversity of form. So it should never be about the hierarchy of one type of way of understanding or knowledge or being or discipline. And it should affirm, stimulate, and develop those who are likely to be affected by it, and try to be as maximally inclusive as possible. And partly what we're seeing today is the efforts to grow the networks across the continent to increase that inclusivity. And we're aware that there are often spaces where inclusivity is difficult both for technical reasons and also because the network as it evolves, there may be focuses sometimes more on one area than on others, but the general impulse we hope is that it would be as maximally inclusive as possible. So Patterson goes on, it should be a broad church of many languages and kinds of performance and analysis in which bridges are built and conversations occur that reveal things to the participants that they could not have learned within their own original limits and worldviews. And that for us has also been central, that the conversations, the discussions, the performances make us all think about ourselves, our professional and personal practice, and the way in which we understand the world just slightly differently, in a slightly new way, that it encourages new forms of conversation, imagination, and dreaming. So I'd just like to, from now on, just have a quick look at, because I'm conscious of time, the different kind of interventions we've had with conferences and conversations, projects and PhDs, collaborations and creations, curriculum interventions, publications and research, and then just to end on more specific information about the network. So as I've indicated, people involved here and on this call have been involved with some of the earliest ways in which MHH was considered specifically in South and Southern Africa, and it has been, it was one of the reasons why Benson's intervention at that 1 week about, but you can't really talk about this as being Africa if it's only South Africa, if it's only Southern Africa, how do we make it Africa? That question that first happened kind of helped shape and frame the realization that while there was a kind of lot of energy or particular naming of the field in South Africa, it had been going on and was going on elsewhere. And these are some of the early conferences that allowed those first conversations to happen, to think about what might the field look like, who might be involved, what might be created. That carried on from 2013, and there have been many since then, including the ones hosted specifically in and of the region. So outside of South Africa, Chisomo and the Malawi Medical Humanities Network did the first two conferences in Malawi they were both pioneering conferences. We've had interventions across then, and obviously now with more recent conferences we've been able to, and virtual connections, we've been able to extend that. So there's been a series of spaces where different types of conversations have been held about what the field might look like and who might be involved in and in what ways. And these have been organized by people that are now part of the main group, but also about other people who are interested and sort of, come to the space when they feel comfortable to do so and then not. The biggest, I think, I would say it's conference is not enough of a word for it. When we first got this welcome grant, so let me tell you the story of this. we initially had a plan that there would be a small face-to-face thing, and then there would be a bigger conference in Kenya, and Joy would be this much bigger thing in real time and physical space. When COVID came, everything had to be rethought, and what we did was to come up with the Breath, Inspire, Expire month-long event, is I think the only way, happening, movement, some trendy word, you can think through that for yourself, that we put together in 2020. And it was much of this team, and again, Charlotte Vasaki's incredible work in getting this done. And it seemed very appropriate at the time because of the notion of I can't breathe, having both the political and a physical and a multidimensional engagement in terms of both environmental issues, the political states of discrimination and power and hierarchy, and the realities of COVID. So the Exploring Breath event, website, gallery, speeches, creative spaces gave us a very unexpected and yet very important way to start thinking about what it is that Medical Health Humanities Africa could contribute to thinking through and about the politics and healthcare of the times we're currently living in. So the website is still up, and we'd love you to go and have a look at it, and to have a look particularly at the creative works. It's coming up to almost a year since then, and it would be interesting for people to be able to reflect and look back both at the comments that were made and what has changed and what has stayed the same. And then, of course, it brings us to today, and this is our joyfulness in having all of you here to be part of this symposium, which is the latest in the series of conversations around medical and health humanities in Africa. So these are some of our current conversations, and we're delighted to be part of them, to be facilitating them, to be creating space for them, and to having people here to do them. As examples of work you will be seeing, and a whole bunch of work will be showcased to you over the next 2 days. But some of the other examples of this have been, for example, projects like the Well Sexuality Project, which Nolwazi was central in. And all of these projects show and have showcased different ways of being and understanding and engaging with notions of wellness, of a lack of dis-ease with ourselves and parts of our bodies or parts of our being. There's also been spaces of collaboration and creation, and again, another project that Nolwazi and others on this call were centrally involved in. I think like the Awaza project, which took younger people and discussed particularly ideas around TB, HIV, and what that looked like in community, but presented them in ways that moved beyond a single format or a single narrative. So these have been some of the spaces in which that's happened. In terms of curriculum interventions, there have been many degrees, many postgraduate studies, masters, PhDs, and some of those people, the people who have recently graduated in medical humanities will be speaking during the course of the next 2 days. But there's also been interventions in direct interventions in curricula, both in health sciences curricula at UCT, where we have tried to incorporate the ethics, the principles of medical health humanities into undergraduate health sciences education, but also interesting collaborations that people like Steve Reed and Susan Levine have put together in terms of online courses like medicine and the arts. And so these spaces have allowed us to also think about what it is that medical humanity can contribute to in the learning spheres, in the spaces of the university. And as of next year, there will be a new MPhil in Health Humanities and the Arts that is launching at UCT. So if anybody's interested, these information, this will be posted on the websites, and it would be lovely to have as many people as possible interested in developing and taking the field forward, being involved. In terms of our publications and our contributions to kind of, I suppose, the more conventional academic formats, Nolwazi mentioned we did the first special issue of Medical Humanities in Africa in 2018, and Brandy Shalachi will be speaking more about the journal. It's one of the eminent journals, probably the eminent journal on medical humanities. And what we're hoping is that what will come from today and tomorrow's conversations will be another special issue that will build on this one and take the kind of philosophical, intellectual and practical engagements of joy and medical humanities, medical health humanities into the next space in between the pages of the journal. We have also all in various ways, many people here and people not here have contributed to editor collections in numerous fields, to books, to radio, newspaper and blog interventions, and have written articles and contributed to special issues, all bringing the component aspects of people's particular research interest or work, but also showcasing the potential for the field. And we also recently just received news that in 2023, we will have, as part of the new Rutledge range on critical engagement with breath and breathing, we will be doing an edit collection that draws from the Breath, Inspire, Expire symposium. And we hope to make space also for more creative engagements in that book. So those have been some of the practical interventions, but none of that is possible without the incredible networks that have been building and been forming. And again, Chisomo's work in the Malawi Medical Humanities Network has been key in this, key in building and growing and reminding South Africans to not navel gaze and to move beyond the borders of their own identities. We've also had very good connections with the University of Global Health Equity, and welcome to our colleagues from there, and the Hamwe Festival. So there is a growing, those rhizomes are increasingly connecting and allowing us to connect with people. We also have formal connections with the Institute for Medical Humanities and the University of Edinburgh and other centres. So the network has connections that are both formal and informal, official and unofficial. And we're comfortable with that as an idea that it speaks to that idea of rhizomic growth. And the most exciting thing, and I cannot make this joyful or bright enough or dazzling enough, is the Southern and East African Medical Health Humanities Network, which is the first of the regional networks for the Medical Health Humanities Africa Network. And it is our colleagues that form part of SEAM who have been central to facilitating what came out today, but also to start bringing together and discussing and talking specifically about what MHH means for the people in SEAM and what it means for people who are studying and people who are participating in creating a new network for a specific region. So this is the SEAM inaugural conference. And it is the first of the regional conferences that we are delighted to see come to fruition. And in a sense, it's one of those shoots and rhizomes that builds up and constitutes the Medical Health Humanities Africa Network. And this is the shameless plugging part. We have a Medical Health Humanities Africa Network website, and we would absolutely love for you to spend some time on the website. There's a newsletter that goes out. We don't spam. We're not big into that. So please feel free to go to the website to sign up for the newsletter. We put numerous things on the website, calls for papers, events, news. We advertise. We offer a space. We advertise events that are upcoming related to the network. We want the website to be a space that showcases work that's coming on and from the continent. So please have a look there. Our regional network members have footprints in, oh, sorry, some of the dots didn't come up. There should be a few more dots along here. So far, these are spaces where we have direct contact with colleagues who are working in the field or busy building the field. So from that original reminder that we needed to think about the continent more broadly, we have started, those rhizomes have started coming to action. The little tufts of grass have started to sprout. And if you wanted a sense of who we are, Charlotte and our new online team is sadly, their images are not yet on here, mostly because Charlotte's shy of putting her image up. But here are our current country organizers and our previous contributors, both to the direction of MHH and also to the development of the online space. Many of the team members will be talking over the next 2 days, so you can get to know them better and get to know their work and their interests as well. The other place that we'd like to invite you to come and learn more about or share your work or speak about things is the Medical Health Humanities Africa Facebook group. The group is a private group, so you do have to ask to join, but it is growing in numbers, and over the last 2 years we've grown to 771 members. We'd love for you to help us take it over 1,000. People share calls for papers, scholarships, articles, work that they're doing to assist in a particular way. So one of our members, for example, works with children with who are on the spectrum and have various diagnoses of autism or ADHD, and has provided toolkits. People share creative works. It's a space to talk about things that are of interest, to share articles, to share ideas. So please feel free to come and join us. We would love to have you there. So our future plans are what Nolwazi and Chisomo have outlined: opportunities for consensual collaborative work to explore understandings, practices and perceptions of MHH in many African countries, to use that consensual collaborative space to build on epistemic generosity and critical kindness, and to grow networks and create spaces for people to collaborate, for people to begin to dream about and do and practically engage with the stuff that they are interested in and want to do, and perhaps have not had a space to connect to other like-minded people in. So the idea is to carefully build and nurture regional networks and working groups. And the longer term dream is that we would have this amazing Medical Health Humanities Africa hub, a bigger, more perhaps concrete space that would allow, continue to support the development of the field, but also create opportunities to submit grant applications, because it's something that we've often had feedback on. People most are interested in how do we make the ideas we have for the field or for projects come to reality, to assist in transcontinental collaborations in research and training and student training, and to support intellectual contributions to the field from the global south. And those terms are obviously contested, but I suppose I should say the majority world. And the eventual dreams were that they would have rotating regional conferences that would incorporate MHH network meetings, would introduce people to MHH, attract new members, showcase work, support emerging researchers, activists, artists, and practitioners, and continue to shape the field. And it's an idea that we would use these places to think through and consider themes like conceptions and cosmologies, how we understand and perceive health, practices of health and care, what people do to stay healthy, technologies, the things and objects that are used, the embodiment and aesthetics of health and wellness, bioethics, time, consciousness, and politics. So these are just some of the plans and dreams that we've had. And all of this, of course, to address this central health issue that we all place, which is the imminent extinction event, because no health on a dead planet. So that's centrality.
We have 1 more minute. We've got to.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so again, guided by the ideas of inclusion, access, and social justice. And so this is our invitation to all of you to contribute as much as you have energy for, as little as you have energy for, to help shape and create and bring to life the ideas we have for what a medical health humanities as a flourishing field could look like. So thank you very much, Asante. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to all that. And I hope it gives you an overview and an insight. And we cannot wait to be to have you as part of this and to have you as part of the network more broadly. Thank you very, very much.